Greetings, family. This is Tariq Nasheed. I am your community servant. Right now, I am in South Los Angeles on the world-famous Crenshaw Boulevard. And with your help, we want to build the first ever hidden history museum right here in the Leimert Park area of Los Angeles, which is the cultural epicenter of Black Los Angeles. Right here on Crenshaw Boulevard, right here, there's an empty lot for sale, and it's in the perfect location for our Hidden History Museum. We want to acquire this lot so that we can build your community museum. There's museums that touch on Black history, but they don't get too deep into it. This will be the first grassroots owned and controlled Black history museum in the world. In our museum, we want to touch on a lot of things that are not touched on in other museums. There's such vast history of Black people here in Los Angeles that we're going to touch on alone. For example, Pio Pico, who was the once governor of California. There's a street, Pico Boulevard, named after him. He had Black ancestry. Francisco Reyes, who was the first mayor of Los Angeles, he had Black ancestry. The grandmother of Los Angeles, Biddy Mason, who was a former slave who became the wealthiest woman in California. We're going to talk about a lot of this stuff in the museum. Also in the museum, we're going to have 5 basic sections. We're going to have a master teacher section where we talk about the teachings of John Henry Clark, Dr. Francis Cress Welsing, Dr. Amos Wilson. We're going to have another section for Black inventors. We're going to talk about the Black people who invented things like the modern refrigeration system, the modern toilet system, the modern home security system, and so much more. We're also going to have a section talking about Black explorers. We're going to talk about people like Estevanico the Moor, who was very instrumental in discovering a lot of spaces here in the North American continent. Speaking of Moors, we're going to talk about the Black Moors who conquered Southern Europe. The Black Moors are never talked about in museums. This is going to be the first time it's talked about in our museum. We're also going to have a section talking about Black rebel leaders, like the Black Seminoles, like other Black Maroons. We're also going to have a section talking about the real history of Black music, particularly the foundational Black American history of hip-hop. I produced a lot of best-selling documentary films, including the Hidden Color series. So a lot of things that's in our documentary films are going to be featured in the museum. And speaking of the films, we're going to have a screening room upstairs in the museum where we can screen our films on a regular basis. We're also going to have large meeting rooms where we can have conferences and community events for the people. Not only will this museum be a great cultural institution, this museum is going to be a great tourist attraction that will help revitalize a lot of the Black businesses that are already here. But family, we need your help. We need at least $7 million to get this project completed. And we're going to start doing everything in stages. We need at least $1 million in the first phase to get the museum project off the ground so that we can acquire the land. Everybody who contributes to the museum, we're going to have a wall in the museum with the names of all the donors. So your name is going to be built into the foundation of the museum. So we need you to get involved. There's going to be a lot of other perks as well. So everybody get involved. Let's make history. Let's take control of our own community and our own history. Get involved with the Hidden History Museum right now.
Peace and blessings. This is DDS02D reporting. Today I want to talk about Tariq Nasheed and this Hidden History Museum. Family, our people are struggling right now. Our people are suffering. They are hurting. We as Black people deserve the best. We built this country. Anyone who is out here representing Black people of the past, representing our history, out there educating our youth, should be the best and brightest of us. Unfortunately, we have individuals in our community who are out here taking advantage of our struggle and taking advantage of our culture. We have to defend and hold these people accountable. We talk about race hustlers, we talk about scammers. One of the characteristics of a scammer is the gift of gab. These individuals speak fast. They speak eloquently, and they're smooth talkers. You have to beware of people who are smooth talkers, people who speak fast, and people who have this quote unquote gift of gab. Another characteristic is that they always insert an element of time, of a time constraint on what they're trying to get you to invest in. That is another big scammer tactic. Yet another element is that they mix in some truth along with lies, blurring the lines of nonfiction and fiction. So with that, let's look at the money that has been generated, the interest that has been generated since the closing of the funding of this museum. Now, August 2021, August 19th, the funding on Indiegogo closed with $1,188,323. So since then, it's been a year since then. Now let's assume that that money is earning interest. And let's put that interest rate at 0.002%. A very, very low number. So doing compound interest, we're looking at a return in 1 year of $28,835.48. The question that I have, where is the accounting of that money? Where is that money? This museum has been poorly planned from the beginning. There's been many snafus, many holdups since the announcing of this quote unquote hidden history museum. I donated to the museum along with many other Black people in support of educating our children, educating our people about the hidden history of Black people. Why? Because in college courses, in college lectures, many times there's a hidden history. There's a lot of information that is not told, not talked about. And what I was hoping is that this brother, Tariq Nasheed, was going to be exhibiting and teaching these things. It's very important. So that's why I supported the project. Unfortunately, it's time now that we have to hold this brother accountable for not performing. It's been an entire year and the land still has not been purchased. But there has been a lot of excuses. That is what there has been plenty of, is excuses for failing. So far, it's been a failure, and it's time to call it out. It's time to call it out. Let's look at some of the messages that were sent to all of the donors. One of the messages, August 16th, 2021, entitled, "We Are in the Zone." I just wanted to say how proud I am of everyone who has contributed to this historic project so far. We have 2 days left in the campaign, and we have raised 60% of the goal so far. We are in the zone right now, and we need to keep the momentum going for the next 2 days. Now, pay attention to this. If everyone could double down on their contribution or share the campaign link on their social media, that would be great. Let's bring it to the Victory Line family. Respect and blessings to Tariq Nasheed. The reason why I'm pointing out the sentence where it says, if everyone could double down on their contribution, is because that is a tactic that many scammers use. Asking people to give more after they have already given what they could have given or wanted to give. You're in the pockets of the people. You're asking for more money. So from the very beginning, there are some warning signs, unfortunately. Let's move forward. Less than 27 hours left for the museum funding. We are now at 70%, at 73% of the funding for the museum, and we have less than 27 hours to meet our goal. Over 6,800 of you have contributed so far. If everyone who contributed can give just $40 more right now, at least, we will reach the goal. And the Hidden History Museum will become a reality. Let's make this happen, family. We can do this. Respect and blessings, Tariq Nasheed. This is another warning sign. Because it's making promises. And the History Hidden Museum will become a reality. This is a promise, an unfulfilled promise at this moment. This is a traditional, classic scamming tactic. And once again, asking for more money from people who have already contributed. If everyone could just give $40 more right now. See, this is this concept of putting a time constraint on things. Now, I understand that Indiegogo does this automatically, where if the goal is not reached, the money is given back to the donors. But he is going beyond that. He is sending out messages to people basically to hurry up and give more money. Now, wait a minute. I've got a sister here in the chat. Here, Ms. Zanetta G. How you doing, sister? Okay, you're still muted, sister. That's okay. Let's keep on going.
Hey,
Hey, how you doing?
hey, hello, DDS. How are you today?
I'm doing fine. How you doing?
Good. I'm great. I'm great.
That's good. What do you think so far? Do you know about this Hidden History Museum at all?
Actually, I do. I donated money also, and I
Okay.
donated under the pretense that at least we would see the fruit of our donation by now. But I understand uh, by working in I worked at Florida State University libraries, and there's a lot of work involved into starting a museum. You have to have archivists in place, you have to have curators, you have to have areas. If you start a collection, you have to have areas in that particular museum that are temperature controlled. You have to have security depending on what type of collections you're going to have. But as of yet, we haven't heard anything in that, you know, of that type of information as far as this museum is concerned.
So you have expert knowledge, basically, of how basically these museums operate and what's needed to um, to
To get,
operate and to showcase a museum.
that's
That's really
correct.
interesting. You said you worked at FSU.
Yes, I worked at FSU for 20 years. I worked for Department of State Museums for 16 years. So yeah,
Wow,
I
wow,
got a
wow.
pretty I have a pretty good idea of what it takes to get a museum started.
So
And
let
the
me ask
info
you this. Right, right. So let me just quickly ask you this question. Based on what you've seen from this Hidden History Museum, what is your opinion on how it's being presented to the people, how it's being constructed, and the planning? Because it seems to me like there's really been some poor planning done on this museum. It seems like it was that it's just an idea that just came to him. I mean, it sounded like a great idea, but no one was there to really advise him on what was needed to basically get this museum started, what was needed to get this really to get the ball going, and really how much money and resources that it was going to really take to get this done. I mean, what do you think about that?
Well, looking at the information that he presented us with, that first slide that you showed with him promoting or pitching his idea for the museum, it appears to me in the information that he showed that uh, he's really not going to have any types of special collections or you know, anything of that nature to house in the museum. It looks like he's going to put together like bits and pieces from his hidden colors videos and showcase information on Black history in that way. You know, for example, he was saying, you know, he was talking about Biddy Mason. They're going to have something dedicated to her and have a section dedicated to this, you know, historical figure. But you never see any type of, you know, any type of, you know, curated items or any, you know, any type,
Can,
anything
mhm,
of that nature in this. And you know, he also stated that he was going to have that second floor so you can view the hidden colors videos. But
right.
from what he presented is you can clearly see that there was no thought, you know, taken into how you can get something of any type of historical value placed into the museum.
Mhm.
No relics. You hear him speak, you know, say nothing of acquiring relics for the museum, because
Mhm.
usually museums are, they house relics from our past, you see.
Mhm. Okay, yeah.
So
What is a I know you mentioned this word before. Can you explain what is a curator?
a curator is a person that goes out and finds special collections to house in your museum. You know, like they make deals with, you know, people to acquire certain, you know, rare objects or rare papers, and they make deals with them to put, you know, put those into the museum, or you know, get them to
Mhm.
donate certain items. You know, the same way with an archivist. An archivist is a specialist in rare materials. They can tell whether or not that material is fake, or they do the research to find out whether or not it's worth putting in a museum, or the value of certain relics and documents. So you know,
Mhm.
we've heard nothing of that from Tariq.
So see, yeah, see that goes back to my point that it appears as though this brother didn't properly vet the idea. He didn't have advisors that basically let him know about these curators. And since that is the case, I wonder what else has he not talked about? Like if you think about the security, I mean, think
Right,
about these very valuable art pieces, very valuable. It needs to be secured. You have to have
right.
security. And with that, and even with the curators, I would imagine that there are some ongoing, reoccurring costs.
Of course,
Mm,
these people don't work on donations.
mm,
These people are professionals, and you have to have somebody in place to, keep tabs on your relics and rare documents as well, because if they're not housed properly, they fall prey to, you know, um, insects or, pests, eating the or deteriorating the object if the temperature isn't correct, for certain rare objects. You can lose everything that you have placed in the museum.
mm. And see, what I find really interesting about it is that, he's basically moving from project to project. I don't see him starting and finishing one project. I see him taking on three, four, five different projects all at one time.
Right.
And I've never really been a fan of that kind of thing, because what I've noticed is that when people be doing like four and five things at the same
Mhm.
time, nothing
Mhm.
ends up getting done. Nothing
That's
ends up
correct.
getting done. Everything is like halfway done. There's little thought put into everything because you're, preoccupied with other things. I mean, it's just a bad strategy, right? For
Correct.
doing business, because in the end, this is supposed to be a money generating thing. Um,
Mhm.
you're supposed to be able to collect some revenue out of this.
That's
And
correct.
I don't even see a plan um,
Mhm.
put in place for him to collect revenue out of this situation. I just see a very poorly planned,
Mhm.
um, a very poorly planned event. But I want
I
to I
I
want to move
I
I want to
agree.
move a little forward just really quick through
Okay.
a couple more of these slides. Like if you
And
notice,
okay, I would like to say one more thing about the curator, if
okay,
it's
yeah, go
if I
ahead.
can.
Yeah.
Okay, a curator isn't like a one-time employee. A curator is actually responsible for taking care of, or developing a certain collection in the museum. So,
Hmm.
they have an ongoing task of, caring for whatever collection that they're responsible for. So it's not just a one-time deal where, they make that deal, acquire the collection. They are responsible from that collection as long as it's housed in that museum.
Mm. Interesting. Interesting. See, this is why, and I wonder, um, in his chats, I wonder if anybody ever mentioned that in his chats, because I've noticed that he has like a cult following of people
Hmm.
who basically are blinded. And this is what I'm talking about with our people. See, our people, we're hurting right now. We're suffering right now. And a lot of us are looking for a savior, a leader, someone that's going to supposedly get us to the quote unquote promised land, that's going to lead us to, to the path of success. And that's where I see the problem coming in, because we put our trust in these people, and we put our power in them, you know, and with absolute power, see, absolute power corrupts absolutely. We have to be wary about putting trust in individuals, because in the end, these people are only people. They're only individuals like you and I. See, the message, the messaging has to be what leads us. The words, the code has to be, not the individual. But I find it really strange how none of his supporters have brought this to the forefront. Have you seen anyone in his chat ever mention to him about this situation with security, about curators, about these special collections? Have you seen
Not
that at all?
not one time.
Wow.
Not one time. I have heard Tariq later on, after the money was raised, mention a curator in one sentence that he made, but that was it.
Mm.
But that was it.
Well, sister, I want you to hold on a minute. I'm just going to go through a few of these slides and I'll just get your opinion on them. I'm just
Okay.
going to go through a few more and then we'll be finished.
Okay.
Um, so this slide here, this is from August. What is this? August the 18th. It looks like 2021. It says, "We did it. Congratulations and thanks to everyone who made this campaign a success. We made history with this monumental effort. I am extremely proud of everyone who helped to make this campaign a success. Now we are going to immediately get started on getting the land for the museum. We will keep everyone posted on all the next stages for the project." And this is really strange because I have noticed that we haven't been getting timely updates. You know, I donated to this project, and like you mentioned that you donated as well, and we
Correct.
haven't really been getting timely updates about this museum. If anything, I have been noticing him attacking people who are asking him about it. I find that as very suspicious, and I find that as a big, big red flag. Have you noticed that same thing?
Yes, I have. It was one young lady that called in to his channel, and he was belligerent to this young lady. I mean, he stooped down to the level of a fourth grader and just verbally, just denigrated this lady, and she was just asking about the museum. He was so
Mm,
polite in asking for donors, but once he got that money and you ask him a question about the museum, he gets very, very belligerent and defensive, and I don't see, I don't see why that how that's necessary. If you that's a legitimate question. If you pitched it to us and you said you wanted to do this for the betterment or for the information of our Black culture, give us the information that we ask.
exactly. I mean, I've been noticing this same thing. I mean, he seems very childlike. I mean, when it comes time to be held accountable and he's being asked about it, he starts to inquire of them. He asks, "Well, did you donate?" And then he asks, "Well, how much did you donate?" As though that has a bearing on the question. Like, if the question is a legitimate question, he's
Right.
right, but he refuses to answer the question. Instead, he starts to attack the person asking the question. It seems to me, it seems very obvious what he's doing. He's deflecting, right? So
Exactly.
the next slide, he did provide an update here, March 23rd of this year. He says, "Greetings, family. I wanted to give everyone an update on the museum. We are still working on securing a location here in Los Angeles." Now, mind you, right, this is what, 8 months or so, right, after the closing of the campaign. And he's still working on securing a location. So there's obviously some issues going on and it's troublesome. I don't see why we should continue to donate to this project considering all of the setbacks that has taken place on just basically purchasing the land. It's very concerning. Then he goes on to say there's another property in Lamart Park area of the Crenshaw district that we are waiting to get a green light for. See, this is really concerning. I thought you already had this planned out, brother. And when it comes to doing these types of things, you need to have a backup to the backup, brother. So this is just basically showing poor planning, very poor planning. It says our team is ready to purchase any property in that area that is available. Wow. So now any piece of property a do, right? So now anything right now that you can get a do. Wow. We are dealing with a few political challenges. Really? And he never really got into detail about these political challenges. What are you talking about? He says, but we are taking our time to make sure we get the best location that we need to make the museum work. But wait a minute. You just said our team is ready to purchase any property in that area. So you're basically contradicting yourself, brother. Like, okay, so first it's like, okay, I'm willing to purchase anything. But then in the very next sentence, you say, we're trying to get the best location. See, this is all red flags to me. These are really all big red flags that this brother don't know what he's doing. He doesn't know what he's doing. Now, May 19th, 2022, he says, just wanted to give everyone an update on the museum. We found another building location in South LA. This property is on Jefferson near Crenshaw. The sellers have been very cooperative, and we are now exchanging documents so we can put the property in escrow. So things are looking very good so far. I'm going to continue giving more updates in the weeks to come. I haven't seen any more updates. I haven't seen any more updates.
Exactly.
So based on those text messages, am I the only one seeing red flags? I mean, what do you see about these text messages as you read them? Aren't you like kind of concerned about what's going on? Does he really have a handle on this project? I mean, what do you think?
I think I'm gonna use his words. I think he's deflecting all of us. I think it's a big scam from this point, from the view that I'm looking at it and that you're looking at it. It looks almost like a scam. I think I think Tariq is over his head and on this one.
I do too. I mean, all of the evidence is pointing to a situation, to an Umar Johnson situation, unfortunately. This brother has
Unfortunately.
gotten in over his head. He's gotten in over his head. And what I think needs to happen for him to get out of this situation is basically convert this museum into a conference center. Just put it to
Exactly.
the people, go on your live stream and say, hey, listen, family, we're trying, we're having some issues with getting the museum built. What do you guys think about having this actually into a conference center for everyone to be able to have speeches, for us to have our FBA meetings? This would be the FBA headquarters. I think that's a much more doable project for this brother at this time. Trying
It's
to
a
make a museum right now, I think he's gotten in over his head. With all due respect, brother, I'm not trying to say that you're ignorant, that you're out of your mind, that you're crazy. You know, what I'm saying is that sometimes we get into things that we don't really understand, and it's insane. So there comes a time where you have to just step back and say, okay, change the plans. We need to do something different, right? That's just my ideas. But
I
I
agree.
had,
I agree.
yeah, go ahead, sister.
I agree. Wholeheartedly, I agree. That makes more sense to me.
Hmm. So I had a brother make a comment on my channel on one of my videos that I did on Tariq, and he made a very very interesting point. He says here, he says, I always said, put the building aside. That is the least. What is going to be in the museum? This clown and his cult are not in the industry of dealing art. What artifacts and exhibits will they have in their possession? Some pieces are worth more than the museum itself. Shake my head. This was a very, very good comment, and I agree. Some of those pieces,
Yes,
and I will ask you about this, some of those pieces can be worth more than the land and the museum itself.
exactly. And you have to have the proper temperature settings to house those artifacts. You have to have dynamite security. You have to have thorough security because if someone finds out that you have an artifact in there worth $10 million, you can bet your last money they're breaking there and steal it.
Exactly, exactly, exactly. And this comment from an anonymous person says Tariq just bullies people whenever they ask him about his museum. Exactly. That is what we've been talking about. And that's a red flag. All of these issues are red flags. Now, the brother has done some good work. He has done some good work. But with this museum, with this tangible thing, see, when it comes to tangible things, you have to you have to have some experience, you have to have some advisors, you have to have the information available to you to really see if this is something that's going to be feasible. And I just don't think that this brother thought this thing through well enough, and I just feel like, and I think that people have been scammed. I think people have been scammed, and either he needs to give people their money back or he needs to reconfigure this museum into a convention center or a conference center or the FBA headquarters in America. I really do think that this is probably his best way out of this. Because if he doesn't do this, if he doesn't go through with this museum, it's going to be the destruction of this brother. I really do feel as though he's going to be delegitimized. He's going to become the laughing stock of black people. And it's a disgrace because we black people, we deserve better. We deserve the best. We have been through hell in this country. And we really do deserve the best of our people to represent us. What do you think about that, Miss G?
That is so true. Tariq, I just hope he don't fall. I hope he didn't use the playbook of Omar. I hope he he didn't use his playbook when it came down to this museum. Because
Exactly.
if he has, I agree with you. This is going to be his downfall. And so
Mhm.
far he's been doing really, really well with educating us with his videos. But just only thing we ask is just to see some progress.
Right.
We black people, we are so patient. We've been patient for 400 years, you know 400 years in the United States, we have patience, but it's time for the patience to be running out because you know we cannot afford to continue to be looking for something that doesn't exist. As Black people, we cannot. We want to see progress. And the way Tariq talks, he's about progress, but there's been no progress or information given to us about this museum. So, you know, he need to get back on code and stop taking his time, like he said. You know, now that he got them $1 million, he needs to move forward and make concrete decisions. And if he don't have a team in place to help him to make this happen, he needs to employ people. You can't do it on your own. You have to have people employed to be able to start a serious thing like this up.
Right. It's time right now to hold. Everyone needs to be held accountable.
Right.
Everyone needs to be held accountable, and Tariq Nasheed is no exception. We can't put this brother on a high pedestal of a king, of a person that is beyond reproach, a person that's beyond being held accountable. That is not what Black people need. We need a sense of cohesion, but we also have to hold each other accountable. Now, listen, I can get into some more issues, some more red flags, but I want to keep it clean because there are more red flags about, you know, things that he's been doing, certain, actions that he's been taking. But I want to keep everything focused on just the museum, and just on his face. I mean, just looking at it from an objective point of view, there are a lot of red flags, there are a lot of problems. And, I just think it's time that people, open their eyes. I just ask people, just open your eyes and see what's going on. Open your eyes, ask questions. Ask questions and notice that when people start to get defensive, when you ask them questions, then that is a red flag because he asked us for this money. He begged us. He basically begged Black people for this money. He was on live streams constantly promoting this museum, this hidden history museum. And now he's upset about people asking about the museum, characterizing them as pocket watchers. Hell yeah, we're pocket watchers. You know why? Because it's our money that you got in your pocket, brother. And we haven't received what was promised to us. There's supposed to be at least a land purchase right now. It's taken over a year, and it still hasn't been finalized. Brother, get on your game. Get on your game. Start doing something because the people are watching. So with that, sister, I really appreciate you coming up.
Well,
I
thank you
had a
for
great
having
time
me.
with you.
Thank you
Um,
for having me, DDS. This is very
yes,
important.
yes. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Peace.
Okay. Peace. Yes, family. It is time that everyone is held accountable. Everyone be held accountable. The people deserve at least that. They deserve at least updates, at least more detailed information. And I'm not saying do it on your live stream for people who haven't donated. I'm talking about those who have. You have a list of people who have donated, brother. Don't they deserve better? So with that, I'm out. Peace.